What happens when one of Hollywood's most beloved actors draws a line, and the host of late-night TV decides to cross it anyway? The entertainment world was stunned after Brad Pitt was abruptly booted from Jimmy Kimmel Live in what began as a routine promotional interview but quickly spiraled into one of the most contentious on-air clashes in recent television history. The fallout? Immediate and explosive. Social media lit up. Industry insiders began whispering, not so quietly, about what really goes on behind the scenes of late-night television. But before we unpack every detail of this jaw-dropping confrontation, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss one of our deep dives into the stories Hollywood doesn't want you to hear. As you watch, drop your thoughts in the comments. Was Kimmel out of line? Or did Pitt overreact? The evening had all the makings of a standard taping. The studio audience was electric, buzzing at the chance to see Brad Pitt, who was there to promote his latest film. But while the audience was excited, the energy backstage was tense. Production staff were on edge, and few would understand why. Until later. Brad arrived in good spirits, his usual mix of charm and calm. He greeted fans, posed for photos, and made his way inside completely unaware of the powder keg he was walking into. Sources close to the production say Kimmel had been in a foul mood all day, snapping at staff, making erratic demands and exhibiting what one assistant called the worst version of himself. "He's always had a mean streak," said one crew member. "But lately, it's different, meaner, less filtered." When Pitt finally walked on stage, the audience roared. He smiled, shook Kimmel's hand, and took his seat. The first few minutes went smoothly. Small talk, some laughs, and questions about the film. Brad, ever the professional, answered thoughtfully, slipping in moments of his signature dry humor. Then came the shift. "So, Brad," Kimmel said with a sly grin, "we've all read about the divorce. Got any juicy details for us tonight?" The air changed instantly. The camera caught Brad's face, his easygoing expression faltering. He stayed composed, but clearly didn't appreciate the turn. "Jimmy, I think we both know that's not what I'm here to discuss," he said, measured but firm. "Let's keep the focus on the film, if that's all right." Instead of pivoting back, Kimmel leaned in. "Come on, Brad. You can't expect to come on my show and just stick to your script. People want the real stuff." Laughter from the crowd was now strained, hesitant. Everyone could feel it. This wasn't banter. It was baiting. Brad shifted slightly in his seat but stayed calm. "Actually, Jimmy, that is how these things work. We agree on topics beforehand, and my personal life was explicitly off the table." Behind the scenes, Pitt's team had confirmed this. They had been clear. No questions about his children, the divorce, or ongoing legal matters. Kimmel had agreed, then deliberately broke that trust. Instead of backing down, Kimmel went further. "My audience expects authenticity, Brad, not sanitized talking points from a PR handler." By now, the crowd had fallen quiet. You could hear a pin drop. Brad took a breath, visibly trying to diffuse the escalating situation. "Jimmy, I've always respected you, but this feels less like a conversation and more like an ambush. I'm happy to talk about the film, my work, even the industry, but not my kids, not my family, and not like this." What happened next shocked even Kimmel's own staff, though some say they saw it coming. "Don't tell me how to run my show," Kimmel snapped, his cheerful façade dropping completely. "You Hollywood types think you can control everything. Not here." That was it. Brad stood, said nothing more, and walked off stage as the audience sat frozen. The producers cut to commercial. When the show returned, there was no explanation, just an awkward shift to the next guest, as if nothing had happened. But the damage was done, and the internet noticed. In the hours that followed, clips of the confrontation exploded across social media. Fans praised Brad for standing his ground and called out Kimmel for ambushing a guest under the guise of authenticity. Industry veterans began speaking out too, painting a picture of a host whose behind-the-scenes behavior had long been shielded by Hollywood's PR machine. Back at home, Brad put the moment behind him, focusing on his family and upcoming commitments. But Kimmel? He spent the night doom-scrolling through trending hashtags and hot takes, watching as the carefully managed image he'd cultivated began to unravel. Because in that unscripted moment, both men revealed who they truly were. Brad Pitt came across as calm, grounded, and principled. Kimmel, by contrast, showed a side viewers rarely see, defensive, combative, and unable to tolerate anything outside his control. Their clash wasn't just about a single interview. It was about a deeper tension in modern entertainment, the difference between performing authenticity and actually being authentic. And perhaps that's why the moment resonated. In a world full of spin and spectacle, people recognized something real. "This is my show, my rules." The studio fell into a stunned silence. Brad Pitt, visibly taken aback by the outburst, took a moment, then responded with measured calm. "I'm not trying to control anything, Jimmy. I'm just asking for the basic respect of honoring the agreement we made before I came out here." During the commercial break, tension backstage boiled over. Witnesses reported a heated exchange between Brad's team and the show's producers. Brad stayed seated, eyes on his phone, making a point to avoid even glancing in Kimmel's direction. Meanwhile, the host huddled with his writers, visibly agitated. When cameras rolled again, the air was thicker than before. Kimmel returned with a half-hearted apology soaked in sarcasm. "Sorry if I touched a nerve, Brad. I guess some topics are just too sensitive for you." That was the final straw. Brad straightened, his signature charm replaced by a rare edge. "You know what, Jimmy? I've been in this business long enough to recognize when someone's trying to stir up controversy for ratings. That may be your game, but I'm not here to play it," the audience gasped. Brad Pitt, long celebrated for his affable, easygoing public image, had just drawn a line in the sand, but those who knew him weren't surprised. "Brad is kind, patient," said a longtime colleague, "but he's not someone who tolerates bullying, no matter who it's coming from." Kimmel's face turned a deep shade of red. He gripped his desk, jaw tight. "Are you saying I ambushed you? For ratings?" he said, voice low and tense. Brad didn't flinch. "I'm not saying it. I'm stating it. And from your reaction, I think you know it's true." The moment that followed would become internet legend. Kimmel, unaccustomed to being called out on his own stage, snapped. The carefully curated charm slipped, and the side of him long whispered about in industry circles finally surfaced. "Cut to commercial!" he barked. But the director, caught off guard, hesitated, and in that delay, the cameras captured everything. Kimmel leaned forward, finger jabbing toward Brad. "You think you can come on my show and talk to me like that? Do you have any idea who I am?" Brad stared back, unshaken. "Oh, I know exactly who you are, Jimmy. The question is, do you? Because this isn't how a professional acts, especially not one who claims to respect their guests." The audience was frozen, phones came out. People started recording, sensing something extraordinary. Something real was happening. Kimmel seethed. "You're done here. Get off my stage." Brad blinked, incredulous. A brief, disbelieving smile crossed his lips. "Are you actually throwing me out because I wouldn't let you break the agreement we made?" Kimmel turned to security. "Escort Mr. Pitt off the premises." Gasps and boos erupted across the studio. Some audience members stood in protest. Others shouted at Kimmel. It was chaos. Through it all, Brad remained composed. He raised his hands in a calming gesture toward the advancing security guards. "No need for that," he said gently. "I can see myself out." He turned to the crowd, offering a warm smile, a stark contrast to Kimmel's fury. "Sorry you had to witness that. Not what any of us expected tonight." As he walked off stage, someone in the crowd called out, "We're with you, Brad." The room erupted into applause. Not polite claps, but a wave of support, a protest, a moment. Brad nodded to the security team, now visibly uncomfortable, and exited with grace. Behind him, the applause thundered, a sharp rebuke to the host who had just crossed a line too far. Once Brad walked off stage, Kimmel sat frozen, visibly rattled but trying desperately to regain control. He forced a laugh. "Well, that was interesting," he said, a hollow smirk stretching across his face. "Some people just can't take a little ribbing. Am I right?" No one responded. The silence was suffocating. Cameras caught several audience members quietly rising from their seats and heading for the exits, their disgust written all over their faces. Backstage, Brad's team was already fielding calls and texts. The fallout had begun. Yet Brad himself appeared composed, calm. "I'm sorry it went down like that," he reportedly told his publicist. "But there's a line, and he crossed it, intentionally. I'm not going to sit there and be disrespected just because someone's having a bad day and needs a ratings boost." Meanwhile, chaos erupted behind the scenes. Kimmel's producers scrambled to salvage the rest of the taping, but the studio atmosphere had curdled. The air was cold, the audience unsettled. Even the next guest seemed visibly tense. Audience members whispered among themselves. One later told Entertainment Weekly, "It was like watching someone shapeshift. One moment he was the Jimmy we know from TV. The next he was this angry, mean-spirited man. I've watched him for years. I'll never see him the same again." In a last-ditch effort to lighten the mood, producers handed out free merchandise and tried to rally the crowd. But the magic was gone. Kimmel's jokes fell flat. Applause was forced. Laughter felt strained. The show limped on, a shadow of its usual self. Outside, fans and paparazzi quickly noticed Brad's early departure. As they gathered around him, he paused briefly, still gracious even in the midst of controversy. "Sometimes things don't go as planned," he said with a quiet smile. "That's all I can really say right now." But the story had already escaped the building. By the time Brad reached his car, clips of the confrontation, raw and unedited, were already flooding social media. Studio audience members, furious at what they had witnessed, made sure the moment couldn't be buried in post-production. Within hours, the hashtag #JustShameOnKimmel was trending. Public opinion turned swiftly and sharply. Fans, celebrities, and media figures rallied around Brad. News outlets pounced. What began as a viral moment became the top entertainment headline, and soon, past guests began to speak out. This wasn't an isolated incident, one actress revealed anonymously. "Jimmy can be incredibly cruel when he doesn't get his way. Brad just had the self-respect and star power to stand up to him. Most of us didn't. A former writer for Jimmy Kimmel Live added fuel to the fire. There's a reason the staff turnover is so high. What you saw on camera, that's the Jimmy we dealt with every day. The nice guy act is just that, an act. In response, ABC released a carefully sanitized statement. We value all our guests and strive to provide a respectful platform for engaging conversations. We regret that tonight's episode did not meet those standards. Brad's team, meanwhile, opted for silence. No counters, no press tours, no interviews, just grace and dignity. That silence only amplified the public's admiration. Brad's restraint spoke volumes, while Kimmel's meltdown continued to reverberate. Industry insiders began whispering about the long-term implications. This kind of on-air implosion can be career-ending, said one veteran reporter, especially now, when authenticity matters more than ever, and bad behavior isn't so easily swept under the rug. Privately, Kimmel was said to be livid. He blamed everyone but himself, the producers, the audience, even Brad. He reportedly demanded a media spin, something, anything, to reclaim control of the narrative. But his team had little to offer. The footage was everywhere. The truth was undeniable. By morning, the incident had transcended late-night TV gossip. It had become a lightning rod, part of a broader, necessary conversation about power, ego, and how stars are treated when the cameras are rolling. And for once, the curtain had been pulled back, and the public didn't like what they saw. The incident was quickly labeled a watershed moment, with many cultural commentators predicting it would spark a serious re-evaluation of the talk show format itself. When the heavily edited official broadcast finally aired, viewers immediately noticed the surgical cuts around the now infamous confrontation. The show attempted to whitewash the incident, showing Brad Pitt casually departing during a commercial break, while Kimmel offered a vague excuse about a scheduling miscommunication. The damage control effort backfired, spectacularly. Side by side, comparisons between the aired episode and the raw viral footage exposed the deception. One social media user summarized the collective sentiment. They're trying to gaslight the entire viewership. We saw what happened. The comment exploded online, shared millions of times in hours. The show's social media pages were inundated with backlash. Thousands of angry viewers flooded the comments, many vowing never to watch again. Hashtags like "or justice for Brad" and "Dara boycott Kimmel" trended for days. Then came the corporate fallout. Several major advertisers quietly suspended their sponsorships, requesting a formal review of the incident before continuing any association with the program. Internally, network executives scrambled. Meetings stretched into the night. Damage control had become containment. 3 days later, Brad made his first public appearance, a long-scheduled appearance at a children's charity gala in LA. The media swarmed. Flashes erupted as he stepped onto the red carpet. Every question was the same. Have you spoken to Kimmel? Do you regret the walk-off? Brad, calm as ever, paused and offered a measured response. Look, everyone has bad days, he said, voice steady. But when you invite someone into your space, your home, your show, there's a baseline of respect that should always be there. Boundaries were set. They weren't honored. That's all I was standing up for. When asked if Jimmy Kimmel had reached out since the incident, Brad gave a knowing smile. No, but that's okay. Sometimes silence says everything that needs to be said. Meanwhile, Kimmel was nowhere to be seen. The show cited a pre-planned vacation, but insiders told a very different story. It wasn't a vacation, said a senior staffer. It was a mandatory cooling-off period. The executives were livid. They told him to disappear while they figured out how to contain the mess. Behind closed doors, the atmosphere was grim. Staff described round-the-clock crisis meetings. Executives weren't just angry. They were worried. There's real concern this might be the beginning of the end for the show, one producer confided. Worse, those who interacted with Kimmel during his hiatus described a man in total denial. "He doesn't think he did anything wrong," said one insider. "He keeps saying people are overreacting, that it'll blow over. He doesn't get it. Or maybe he doesn't want to." When Kimmel finally returned to the air the following week, expectations were sky high. Instead, viewers were met with a muted, awkward apology. "I want to address what happened last week with Brad Pitt," he began. "Things got heated. Reacted poorly. For that, I apologize. To Brad, and to our viewers. It might have landed, if he'd left it at that. But what followed undermined it entirely. A flurry of offhand jokes, subtle jabs suggesting Brad was overly sensitive, Hollywood fragile, and maybe due for a nap. The backlash was immediate. Viewers once again lit up social media, this time condemning the apology as performative and insincere. Kimmel, they argued, hadn't learned a thing. He was simply trying to save face. Brad, for his part, remained silent. He neither acknowledged nor rejected the apology. That restraint only elevated his stature further. "He's shown nothing but class throughout this," said one entertainment columnist. "And the contrast couldn't be clearer. Behind the scenes, the consequences became clearer by the day. Ratings plummeted. Viewers made good on their promises to boycott. A-list celebrities quietly cancelled upcoming appearances, not wanting to be dragged into the controversy or subjected to the same treatment. More damning still, the show's internal culture began to crack wide open. Emboldened by the public, fallout, current and former staffers began speaking out. Allegations of a toxic workplace, long whispered in industry circles, now spilled into the open. HR complaints multiplied. Stories emerged of bullying, emotional manipulation, and an environment where dissent was punished and egos ran wild. The image of America's favorite late-night host had shattered, and the question on everyone's mind was no longer if there would be consequences, but how far they would go. The network swiftly announced an internal investigation. "It's like the dam finally broke," one crew member confided. For years, employees had simply accepted the toxic status quo, putting up with tantrums and disrespect as the cost of working on a high-profile show. But now, people were waking up to the fact that no one should have to endure abuse just to do their job. With mounting public backlash and the looming threat of legal consequences, the network quietly began exploring options for the show's future. Behind closed doors, talks about potential replacement hosts were already underway, kept tightly under wraps. For Brad, the incident only bolstered his already stellar reputation. Public support for his stand against bullying was overwhelming, with many lauding his dignity and courage. Several talk show hosts, sensing the moment, reached out with invitations for Brad to appear on their programs and promote his film, this time on his terms. Eventually, Brad accepted an invitation from a rival network, where he was met with genuine respect and given the space to discuss his work without invasive or hostile questioning. The interview was widely praised for its substance and professionalism, a sharp contrast to his experience on Kimmel's stage. The controversy ignited a wider industry conversation about the power dynamics inherent in celebrity interviews, and the exploitative nature of talk shows that chase viral moments rather than meaningful dialogue. Several high-profile hosts announced they would be revising their formats to collaborate more closely with guests on topics and boundaries. Industry. Insiders noted the significance of Brad's stature in making this stand impactful. When someone of Brad Pitt's caliber says, "Enough," people listen, explained a veteran publicist. He had the luxury to walk away without jeopardizing his career, a privilege many lesser-known actors do not share, which has allowed abusive behavior to persist for so long. As the weeks passed, the incident became a cautionary tale within Hollywood. Kimmel's reputation suffered what many called irreparable damage, while Brad emerged as a symbol of professionalism and resilience, standing firm against mistreatment. The full fallout for Kimmel is still unfolding, with industry watchers closely monitoring the network's next moves. One thing is clear. The entertainment landscape has been indelibly changed by those tense moments on stage, when one of Hollywood's most respected actors refused to be bullied, even by one of television's most powerful figures. What do you think about the confrontation between Brad Pitt and Jimmy Kimmel? Was Brad right to stand his ground, or should he have played along with Kimmel's aggressive questioning? I want to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below. If you enjoyed this breakdown of Hollywood's most explosive talk show moment, don't forget to hit subscribe and ring the notification bell to stay updated on all the real stories behind the celebrity headlines. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.